The price of Bitcoin has broken out as predicted, but where does this leave us in the short-term future? Hello everyone, my name is J1 General and welcome back to another cryptocurrency video. In today's video we're going to be discussing the most recent breakout that I predicted in my last few videos. We're going to look at some key resistance levels, we're going to look at some key support levels, and we're just going to take a look at a few metrics and a few narratives and discuss where the price could go in the near-term future. So if you like this type of content, make sure you hit that like button, make sure you hit that subscribe button, as it always makes help the channel grow. And if you are a fan of cryptocurrency and you want to shop some cryptocurrency products, I've got an Etsy store. I'll leave a link in the description down below so you can get 5% off your next purchase. So without further ado, let's begin. Yeah, and I want to begin from the very beginning. Yeah, and I want to talk about this 48k level first, because that was the real resistance level which initially caused the price of Bitcoin to drop well over 20%. Yeah, we discussed this. Why is such heavy resistance? Because in my recent videos I've showed this many a times, you've probably seen this many a times. The 48 to the 49k level was indeed that golden pocket ratio of the 618 Fibonacci level. Yeah, so a lot of people, a lot of technical analysts, a lot of experts had their eyes on this level for quite a while, including myself. And the reason why, well, the narrative that helped push Bitcoin get to this price is, as you guessed it, the Bitcoin spot ETF. Yeah, that caused a lot of hype, a lot of hopium. The sentiment was crazy bullish, and the Bitcoin price hit the 48k level. But since then, Bitcoin has retraced from that 49k level to around 38.5k, which is around 21.5% drop. And then I predicted that the price of Bitcoin will essentially bounce and reach some targets. I did not think it would go down, because the way how the sentiment quickly changed when price was here and everyone was calling for 35k, 32k. It's so funny how individuals in the cryptocurrency market, their psychology just changes so quick. You know, price goes down a couple thousand and then they're screaming for, you know, like penultimate lows. It's crazy, but since the bounce, the price has revived itself by just shy of 10%, so around 9.5%. And I called it. But the narrative that followed this, I believe, is that this is from Bitcoin Magazine on their X profile. JP Morgan says profit taking on G Bitcoin has largely concluded, expecting limited further downside of Bitcoin. So when we had sort of like this rally to 48k, all the technicals were screaming for a sell-off. You know, we hit extreme greed on Ethereum greed index. The RSI was well overextended with some bearish divergences. You had the Bitcoin spot ETF hype coming in within the first week of January. Everything was just major bullish, and that would have been the perfect time to sell. Yeah, but with this post, JP Morgan says that profit taking has largely concluded because Grayscale was selling Bitcoin like a madman. They were sending it to Coinbase, selling hundreds and thousands of Bitcoin a day, which put some fear into people, which is what may have like essentially put the price down 20% since that high. But since then, we have increased in price, and I just want to look at some key levels. Yeah, I want to look at some key levels. I want to look at the 100-day SMA and I want to look at the 20-day SMA. The reason why I thought we would bounce, there's two reasons why I thought we would bounce, yeah? Not only because we just had a large sell-off and the sentiment was bullish, etc. And we've now come to a sentiment of there was a lot of fear in this area, and, you know, the RSI cooled off a lot. The reason why I thought we would bounce from this area is because, one, the 100-day moving average. Yeah, if we look in the past, if we go back to 2023, in May of 2023, Bitcoin held the 100-day moving average and then had a bounce. Now, I am of the opinion that we are not going to go put in a new high. I'm of the opinion that we will find some local resistance before ultimately falling lower than the local low of 38k. And I'll explain why as well soon. But just quickly, the 100-day moving average held as support, yeah? And I thought it would hold as support because if we go to the liquidity map, a lot of liquidity was lying between 42 and 43k, which is where I expected price to bounce to, yeah, and bounce from the 100-day moving average to the liquidity. Market makers would want to grab that liquidity before ultimately heading lower. So what local resistance can we find in near short term? And I believe it will be the 20-day moving average. You know, ever since this impulsive move up for Bitcoin since October of 2023, you can see that the 20-day moving average held as support multiple times to get to that elusive 48k level. So I believe now that once we get to that 20-day moving average, which is only about 1.2% move, I think we will get rejected by the 20-week SMA. Because it held it as support so many times during this rally, you know, once you break it, support becomes resistance. So I feel like we're going to touch it and then end up doing something like this where we find resistance at the 20-day before ultimately falling lower. Yeah, and this was also confluent with the liquidity in the market, because one of the reasons why I thought we'd bounce is because we take out that liquidity at 43k, and now as you can see, the majority of that liquidity has gone. Yeah, so if we take a look at the 3-day chart, that was a 24-hour chart. If we take a look at the 3-day chart, you can see that all of this liquidity was taken out. The majority of the liquidity on the upside was taken out, and you can see that there's a large buildup of liquidity around that 39 to 40k. If we take a look at the weekly chart, you can see that again, the majority of the liquidity was around that 42k level. It has all been taken out now. It has all been taken out now, so I don't believe that Bitcoin will have the strength to go on further. Maybe a little more upwards to around that 42.5k, which is also confluent to where the 20-day moving average is, which is around 42.5k. So I feel like the bounce has concluded. I do believe that the Bitcoin price will start falling shortly. And why? Why do I think so? Yeah, I've also discussed this before. But if we take a look at Bitcoin on the weekly chart and we hide some of these indicators, if we look at the bull market support band, once it loads, let's just get rid of this. There we go. So if we look at the bull market support band, guys, not only is the liquidity now lying on the downside on the weekly, it's around that 38 to 39.5k. If we take a look at the 3-day, you can see that the majority of the liquidity is also on the downside again, around that 39k. If we take a look at the monthly, it'll be interesting to see where the majority of the liquidity lies. Let's take a look. Okay, so there's still quite a build up around that 42, 43k range. There is some clusters around that 44, 45k level. So maybe Bitcoin has a crazy wick up to these levels. A wick that will sort of remind me of the 2019 peak, where we had that 618 Fibonacci top. Bitcoin decreased over the course of a couple of weeks, where it went down essentially 35% before ultimately putting in a couple wicks right here. Yeah, so maybe Bitcoin can do something like that, so it literally takes out all of the liquidity before moving down. I won't rule that out, but ultimately I feel like the Bitcoin price will put in a higher low before moving down. And why do I think so? I think so because, and I've discussed this in prior videos, that the price of Bitcoin always manages to get to the bull market support band in February of the halving year, so around here. Yeah, let's not forget that the bull market support band is a moving average and they are lagging indicators. So what that essentially means is that prices from today are replacing prices from 20 weeks ago. And if we go back 20 weeks ago, where was we 20 weeks ago? We was in this area right here. Yeah, in this area right here, pre-pump. So prices currently are replacing prices that were occurring in August and September of the pre-halving year in 2023. So what does that mean? It means that as time goes on, the bull market support band will exponentially increase. Yeah. So as I've mentioned, in February of the halving year, the Bitcoin price always moves down to the bull market support band. If we just verify this information, if we take a look at 2020, February of 2020, you can see that the price went back down to the bull market support band. If we go to the cycle before, so February 2016, you can see again that the price of Bitcoin moved down to the bull market support band. If we go back again, you guessed it, in I believe it was, give me a sec. There we go, Feb 2012, you guessed it, the price of Bitcoin went down to the bull market support band. So in every halving year, the price of Bitcoin moves down to the bull market support band. And I think the same will happen once we get that local resistance. So we could essentially do something like this where we poke up a bit more and then come back and test the bull market support band. And the real question is, will we hold the bull market support band as support or will we dip further? Yeah, you can expect that if we do hold the bull market support band as support, we can definitely expect new highs to come in, especially with the narrative of the halving coming up. You know, Bitcoin dominance will start soaring once the Bitcoin halving narrative starts to come to fruition, which I believe will be around mid-March. So I do believe that the price could put in a new high if the bull market support band holds. That's if it holds. Yeah, because you can see many a times throughout 2023, once the bull market support band was held as support, Bitcoin put in a new yearly high. Once it was held, put in a new yearly high. Once it was held in this area, put in a new yearly high. Yeah, but that's a very big if. That's a very big if, especially with all the technical indicators firing off on all cylinders. And I came across this post, yeah, by CryptoCon, and it's a very detailed and analyzed post, but allow me to explain it to you. So what CryptoCon is saying is he's comparing the Bitcoin price and the Bitcoin cycles along with the RSI. Yeah, and he conducted a Fibonacci on the RSI and he's looked at retests of resistance and retests of support. So you can see that in all of the cycles of Bitcoin history, once the RSI got to levels of the 786 Fibonacci, the RSI always makes its way back down to the 0382 Fibonacci as support. It's happened here where we touched at resistance and then Bitcoin dropped 30% or so when it worked its way back, to the support of the 382 Fibonacci. Yeah, you can see the same thing happened in 2016, the same thing happened in 2019 where we held or backtested the Fibonacci as resistance for the RSI, made our way back down to the 382 support. So what he's essentially saying is that we've hit the resistance level at that 49k, yeah, and RSI is now essentially steepening, but could it put in a higher low before ultimately going back down to the 0382? And if it does go back to that 0382, then he believes that the price will go back to the low 30s, which will also be confluent with the major support level that we could see, because the 31 to 32k level was resistance in all of 2023 before we broke out of it in October. So that could definitely be a level to watch out for. So yeah, I do believe that something like that could happen, where we could drop back down to the low 30s. especially as time goes on. But if we take a look at the daily, I just wanted to see something again, because another reason why I also believed it bounced, I forgot to show you guys at the start of this video, is that we had this trend line right here, right at 38k. That's where Bitcoin spent a lot of time consolidating under before ultimately breaking out. So to hold this back as support did make sense at the time as well. But with that being said, I do believe that in the short term, the Bitcoin price will top out between 42 and 45k at most. 45k at most being all of the liquidity will get grabbed, before then making its way back down to the bull market support band in February. And then we would like to see if the bull market support band holds a support. If it holds a support, we can expect to go tackle these new highs again at 49k. If it breaks down below the bull market support band and backtests it as resistance, then you can most definitely expect it to go back to that 32k level. Depends what the sentiment is, it depends what the narrative is, it depends what news comes out. Anything can affect this market. Yeah, this market is price driven, so we just have to wait and see what happens, guys. So that's it from me today. I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you hit that thumbs up, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and as always, it's been your boy J1 General. Thank you and goodbye.